What is good, people? Welcome back to another video on 8 Count. It's the first upload of 2023 for me, so I hope you're all having a great start to your new year. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the boxing from last night. There was a couple of real good fights, to be fair, on the undercard, but the main event was Gervonta Tank Davis taking on Hector Garcia, which turned out to be an interesting fight, in all fairness. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Be sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on some of the fights which went down last night. And let's just get straight into it, guys. We'll kick things off with the main event. Gervonta Tank Davis against Hector Garcia ended after the 8th round, where Garcia retired in his corner. For me, coming in, I had a lot of question marks about the fight. I guess firstly, you know, Garcia moving up in weight to take on Tank. I was kind of wondering how he could take the power, maybe. But kind of as the fight started, I was actually surprised at how big Garcia looked compared to Tank, considering he was the smaller man coming up in weight. So that was instantly shut down. But some of the other question marks were more around Tank. You know, how was he going to look coming in? Obviously, he had some of the legal drama when he was arrested just over a week before the fight. And then also I was kind of interested in why he was taking this fight. I know he wanted to stay busy, but you know, coming in against a guy who is as talented as Garcia, you know, just before the Ryan Garcia fight, basically, kind of risking it because he could have lost this fight. It's definitely possible. The way the fight was going, personally, before the stoppage, I had Tank up by 3 rounds. I had it 78-75. The first round was the hardest round to score. I just kept it even, as I think they did on the broadcast as well. You know, basically nothing happened. But after that, it was kind of an intriguing affair in which Garcia was able to have success. But overall, I think it was the more eye-catching and the more damaging blows of Gervonta Tank Davis, which were really, you know, interesting me in the fight. Garcia at times was able to, you know, stick to a game plan in which he wasn't necessarily fighting how he normally does. Normally he's a volume sort of puncher, but in this fight he was taking his time a lot more, using the jab to kind of create chances and set the distance of Tank Davis. But for me, I thought it was a good fight. I really did. It was interesting as long as it lasted. One of the biggest, weirdest things I've kind of seen in boxing, where there's been a crowd fight, which happens all the time in MMA and boxing as well, but both fighters kind of stopped to look at it, and then the ref called a timeout, so it was like I guess you could say another minute break in between, in a minute into the 8th round. So it kind of sucks because Garcia, you could say, got caught cold, kind of. But for me, overall, I was impressed with Tank Davis, man. This guy, like, since I've been watching him, he's just got this ability to make people make mistakes and just counter on that. I think this finish was kind of similar to the Leo Santa Cruz one and the Rolly Romero one, when you kind of look at it, you know, guys having success at times and then, you know, just overextending, and that's when he picks his sort of punch and he seems to land all the time. For me, you know, I see Hector Garcia getting a bit of backlash online for not coming out for the 9th round. Personally, I have no problem with it whatsoever. You know, he's talking about vision, and if that's true what he's saying, you know, at lightweight, Tank might be the last guy you want to step in there with bad vision against. Personally, I'm okay with the stoppage. This kind of builds up now for the Ryan Garcia fight. I know there's some more legal stuff for Davis, which has to go his favour for him to be able to take the fight. I believe so anyway. But kind of makes me think about the fight. You know, Garcia was a bigger man against Tank, and you kind of got to see some of the sort of question marks that Tank style kind of holds against the taller fighter. Garcia will be the taller fighter in that matchup, but quite considerably. What is Ryan Garcia, like 5'10"? Yeah, 5'10" against 5'5.5". The reach 67 for Tank and 70 for Ryan Garcia. So, you know, pretty significant sort of height and reach advantage for Ryan Garcia. But still, I just do not see Tank losing this fight if it goes ahead. You know, it's all built up now. I thought it was a risk taking this fight in the first place, but he got through it with flying colours, and now the Ryan Garcia fight is on the horizon potentially. For me, all you really have to do to look at you look at their records and their resume. Tank has fought with better fighters. He's had better performances against better fighters. For me, I find it hard to pick Ryan Garcia in this fight. I think Ryan Garcia is very talented. He's got, no matter what you think about him, he's got extremely fast hands and he's extremely dangerous. But for me, he's going to fall into the traps which most people have with Tank Davis. For me, I don't see Ryan Garcia getting past round 8. Let me know what you think about that matchup in the comment section down below. It is a dangerous fight for Tank because of how talented and, dangerous Garcia is. But since Garcia's moved away from Eddie Reynoso, I just kind of see sort of patterns forming which I don't like with him. I think it was the fight before his last one against Tego, in which Tego kind of fought for a unanimous decision loss, and I think he got it. But it was an interesting fight. He was kind of unorthodox, and Garcia kind of struggled with it at times. In my opinion, I just think Tank's too good of a boxer. I don't think Garcia can outbox him. The only way he's going to win is by, potentially landing that left hook on Tank. But I think Tank gets a lot of... he's not credited enough for his actual boxing ability. I think he's very solid defensively. And, it's been a similar story in some of his fights where, he's not impossible to hit, but people get over sort of zealous against him, instead of using... taking what's there and getting out of range, they kind of, after a while they get confident enough to stand in the pocket with him a little bit too long. And it's the same in the Rolly fight, same in the Leo Santa Cruz fight, and kind of the same in the Hector Luis Garcia fight. They overextend, and he's basically a master of making people overextend and landing that big right hook or the straight left on them. The uppercut as well, so dangerous. For me, I just don't see how Ryan Garcia wins the fight. I think he'll be a heavy underdog, but as a fight I'm still intrigued to see. We'll move on to the co-main event. A guy who's getting a lot of hype coming in, Jerome Boots Ennis. Has been on a bit of a tear, man, and for someone who's got such a record of finishes, everyone was expecting another one. Karen, I don't know how to say his surname, I'm just going to call him Karen. Proved to be a harder sort of challenge than I think most people expected. Had pretty solid defense. Didn't mean Ennis wasn't able to find him, but he was able to use lateral movement a lot of the time to get out of range of Ennis, and at times landed some counter shots of his own, which were looked decent. But the problem was he was the much smaller man. In my opinion, he looked considerably smaller to Boots, and Boots not only had the size advantage, but he had the more sort of concussive sort of power. Karen really didn't have too much, sort of sting on his punches. Wasn't really able to get the respect of Ennis. I think Ennis started the fight quite well in terms of taking his time. He was able to win rounds. He wasn't necessarily blowing out Karen in the rounds, and I think that's what some people were kind of surprised with. But I thought he took his time. He fought well. He was kind of smart. At certain stages later on in the fight, I felt like he kind of was extremely frustrated with the holding, the running. And that sort of played out in the fight. He got caught sometimes where he probably shouldn't have. I thought he showed a lot of defensive expertise as well. The way he slipped out of the range of some of the punches looked special. I think he hurt Karen to the body at one point, but the guy just had a fucking rock chin, and he couldn't really get to him as much as he would have liked. I've seen online since this fight a lot of people chatting shit and stuff like that, and that's not really a surprise for me. The guy's been extremely hyped up. The Showtime sort of angle and PBC have really done a good job at marketing him. He's not really someone who you're seeing all the time over here on TV in the UK anyway. Being highlighted as a potential, great star of the future. But but even that still, it's still, you know, kind of being broadcasted out and people know about Jerome Boots Ennis. But for me, you know, I don't really understand some of the backlash. I guess it's kind of because people think if he fights against like that against Terence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr., he's going to have problems, and that might be the case. But I don't think he's going to take the Errol Spence fight next. I don't think Spence will be back in time for the fight to happen. I do think something like Valdez's opponent's out, so I wouldn't mind seeing him potentially face Valdez. Another fight is probably Keith Thurman. That could be quite interesting. But he's only 1 or 2 away now, surely, because he's a mandatory for Errol Spence Jr. I don't know, man. I just don't. I feel like Errol Spence is maybe the worst matchup for him of the two against Crawford as well. I'm not too sure. It's tough either way. But nevertheless, I'm not all about the hate that he's getting online right now because of the performance. I heard boos in the crowd, but sometimes you just need 2 to tango. Of course, he could have done things better. He could have cut off the ring a bit better. But it is what it is. I think the hate and the backlash that he's getting is mainly because of the sort of reputation he's built upon himself of being that sort of knockout sort of fighter. But it was his first time going 12 rounds, I believe, and I thought he looked good. Never really had a problem with his conditioning. Looked powerful even in the later rounds, and you know, I'm still excited to see what this guy can do in the future. I do believe he'll be a world champion one day, and I'm excited to see when it happens. But we'll move on. I think the Ellis versus Villa fight was first, but we'll talk about Andrade and what I saw of the fight. I've never been the biggest Demetrius Andrade fan, but in this fight, he just looked a class above his opponent. I think he was going up in weight as well. He's able to drop him 2 times. The last time he dropped his opponent, it was real clean. The one before, not so much. But I thought he looked good, man. I just don't think he's ever gonna... You know, I think he needs to fight one of the top guys right now. 31-0. I just don't... I don't know, man. He's just someone, you know, when you do the eye test, he's just someone who doesn't necessarily, I don't think he's going to beat some of these top guys. What's he at? Middleweight? Super middleweight. Yeah, I just don't see him beating some of the top guys, and I'm sure he's going to get a fight in the near future against one of the top guys, maybe for a title. I just don't see it. Let me know what I'm missing with Andrade in the comment section down below, because he's clearly a good fighter. He can fight, you know, southpaw, orthodox. I think defensively he's okay, and offensively he's good as well. But there's just something about him. I don't get that sort of star feel. Let me know in the comment section down below. But it was a good win from what I saw. I caught the back end of the fight, missed the first half. Didn't get up until half 2, so I kind of missed the start of the fight, which is disappointing because you know, I would have liked to have seen a bit more of him. But yeah, it was an impressive performance from what I've seen. I'm not too familiar with Nicholson, so I don't know what sort of caliber he's on. But whatever's next for Andrade, I think it needs to be, you know, a 12-round fight either way, and against someone of a higher caliber, in my opinion. We'll move on to Speedy Rashidi Ellis against Villa. Man, this fight was a tale of 2 halves, wasn't it? What a fight, man. Watching it early on, it was kind of clear to see that Villa had to be the guy who was going to get on the inside. He's a pressure fighter, likes to throw volume, go to the head and the body. And Ellis is more of that sort of I feel like you're seeing it more and more now. These fighters who are so slick, so fast, fighting on the outside, solid defensively, and you know have the power to stop you as well. It's, you know, he's a real threat, I guess you could say, in that way. But Villa came forward. He put the pressure on Ellis, and Ellis handled it perfectly. He was using the jab with tremendous skill, just to keep Villa off of him. I thought his movement was brilliant early on. You know, Villa would come in at times and he'd land the odd few, you know, decent shots, but he was never able to keep Ellis in a position where he was able to unload on him and kind of have continued success and constantly cut off the ring. And Ellis did this for, you know, the first 6 or 7 rounds very comfortably. As the fight went a bit later, it seemed like Villa was getting more into the fight. And it wasn't really until the 10th round or so where you really saw Ellis start to fatigue, kind of interestingly. And, you know, Villa put it on him. I thought he needed a knockout or two to potentially win the fight going into the last round, and that's exactly what he did. He put it on Ennis, and the first knockdown was special. The left hook sent Ellis flying through the air. Ellis got up and he seemed to recover quite quickly, but it wasn't until the final seconds of the round where Villa was able to, you know, kind of stay on top of Ellis. I think he hit him with a real solid right hand, which sent Ellis kind of into the ropes. The only way he was able to stay up was because of those ropes. The ref judged it and knocked down, and it was an incredible win. I wasn't scoring this fight, which is fucking annoying because I don't have a way to get the fight back up now as well, to rewatch it and score it. But I wasn't kind of surprised. Early on, you know, you could say the first 6 rounds are easily for Ellis. I'm sure he might have taken 1 or 2 in the back end. But there's always going to be that case where you can, you know, if you look at a round hard enough, you're going to be able to score it for Villa at one point. I'm sure there's a round within the first 6 which you could potentially score for Villa. In my opinion, though, I was a bit shocked that Villa won it, but the 2 knockdowns towards the end, I think in terms of how boxing is scored with a 10-point must system, I was kind of surprised he won in that way. But in terms of a fight overall, he was clearly the guy who deserved the win, I guess you could say. But I wasn't scoring it, so I don't even know how I can look back and kind of give you my sort of thoughts on it. But what kind of impressed me throughout the fight is, you know, Villa had a game plan. He knew he wanted to be that volume puncher on the inside, and he kind of wasn't really able to get anywhere near Ellis early on. But what was super impressive was his ability to stick to the game plan. I think you see a lot of guys with that sort of pressure style come up against someone like Ellis, and, you know, as soon as they drop 4 or 5 rounds, they kind of lose confidence in themselves. And Villa never did that. He stuck to the game plan, and I think that's what is so important in this fight for Villa, and what kind of ended up winning the fight for him was the fact that he was able to stick on Ellis. And, you know, Ellis ended up kind of gassing towards the end, you know, sort of factors in that, the fact that he hasn't really been too active. I heard them talking about that on the broadcast, but I think it's down to the work that Villa put in. You know, he kept that high pace, which forced Ellis to stick at a high pace just to stay away from him, basically. For me, though, that was my performance of the night. Villa, man, what a fight. Let me know if you caught that one in the comment section down below. I didn't hear of him before this fight. This is my first time watching him, and he's got a fan in me now, and that's one thing for sure, guys. Thank you for watching anyway, guys. If you have enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. I'm going to be doing a video tomorrow after I get a haircut, which is duly needed, why I've got the hat on right now. We're going to be doing our picks for the UFC fight night, Gastelum versus Imavov. I'm fucking up, but I'm also going to do another video on Undisputed, the boxing game, which is soon to release in early access on PC. So be sure to come through and check those out. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you're having a great day and enjoying your weekend, and I'll see you very soon. Peace out.